Yes, sir.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. We're up to 93 participants, 101 and growing. Thank you all for being here. We'll give everyone a few minutes to successfully get logged in, and then we'll begin our webinar momentarily.
Yes, your mics and videos are off.
So we'll wait one more minute. We're up to 161 participants, and then we will begin this shortly. All right, Mr. Ratana, are you ready to begin?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right, we're up to 185 participants. So right now, Ms. Johnson, you're tied with Mr. Ratana from last night, the class of 2022. So we'll see who wins this battle of total participants for our webinars. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Ray Morris Barnes. I'm the principal of Stratford High School, and I am excited to be here with you this evening to meet with the students and parents of the class of 2021. And so we'll go through some prepared presentations covering an array of topics to begin this school year. And then at the end of the presentation, then we will open it up for Q&A, questions and answers. And you can type those questions into the chat box, and then we'll be able to answer those for you in real time. If questions come up about a particular topic, you will also be allowed to type those into the chat box, and one of us will respond while we're going through the presentation. But again, also at the end, we will open it up to general questions about whatever you would like to ask in regards to school. And I will apologize up front if I don't have an answer, or any of us don't have an answer that you're seeking tonight, but we will do our best to be as completely transparent, as honest as possible. So without further ado, for those of you who are new and returning, I introduce our 12th grade assistant principal, Mr. Alfredo Ratana. Take it away, Freddie.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Like Mr. Barnes just said, I have the honor and privilege of being the class of 2021 assistant principal. I assumed this role in early January, so I am the new guy. But I'm not new to Stratford. I was a football and track coach, and I was an English teacher here. And as soon as I came to Stratford, I fell in love with it. So I immediately tossed all my red gear and I started buying as much green as I could. Um, and I'm surrounded by some of the most intellectual, passionate, and capable individuals. So I assure you that I am the new guy, but your seniors are in good hands. I'm going to share my screen to go over the agenda for today. So this is the class of 2021 meeting. This is my contact information if you need it. It will be alfredo.ratana@springbrancisd.com. And this is the phone number for our 3rd grade level office. So a quick who's who of our panel. You have Mr. Jim Harrington, who is our lead alpha counselor. You have Ms. Megan Hudick, who is our campus testing coordinator. You have Coach Jenny Adcock, who is our assistant campus athletic director, our head volleyball coach, and she's an amazing science teacher. You have Mrs. Johnson, who is going to be helping with some Q&A, and you have myself. So at this time, Mr. Harrington, can you please go ahead and share your screen? And the floor is yours.
Mr. Harrington, you're still on mute.
All right, there he goes. All right, I apologize. Hopefully you can see my screen. I want to introduce the different counselors that we have. Ms. Campbell Bishop is coming back to us and she'll be handling the A through C. Ms. Hollister, who was our 504 coordinator, is now moving into an alpha counselor position and she's taking the D through H's. Ms. Arrington is returning and she will have the I through M. I will have the N through R's. Mr. White will have the S through Z's. And of course, we have Amanda Thompson, who is our counselor. Well, I thought we corrected this, but she actually is our counselor for communities and schools. So hopefully, as we go through the presentation, you'll see different things, but these are our contact persons. We do have a new counselor on board. She'll be on board next week, and she'll be our college and career focused counselor, and we'll introduce her later to you as we get more information. So what should a senior be doing? So, you know, college is just ahead. If you think about it, a year from now, your student will be in college, or they'll be at a community college, they'll be in the military, or be out in the workforce. So we need to be prepared for those students to get ready to get moving. We want to make sure that every senior meets the graduation requirements and they're ready to roll. So next week I have our counselors reviewing their transcripts to make sure that everything is absolutely correct. They're in the right classes. We want our seniors to continue to take the rigorous classes that they can take. We want them to be involved, especially in leadership and volunteer work, even during this time of pandemic when we're not around and we're not here on campus. They still can show leadership in other ways. Connor Abel was in a PTSA. He was our interim student council president. He did an amazing job and demonstrated great leadership as a senior. If his moms and dad is on this webinar, we want to greatly thank him, and he had a great leadership for us. We want our seniors to really research their colleges and universities, their military career and career options. Not everyone is cut for college. My father was an iron worker, so my father never finished the 8th grade, but he went out into the workforce. So every student has a place in the workforce, and we want to make sure that we're supporting their choices no matter what it is. Every student and parent should complete a student and parent brag sheet, and a student should have their resume. They're going to need that in the workforce. They're going to need it in their college applications. If your student is applying to a public university here in Texas, they should be already filled out an application on applytexas.org. And if they haven't, have them email their counselor and we'll help them work their way through. Now, if your son or daughter is applying outside of Texas or to a private university in Texas, we use the Common Application, and that is an application that over 12,000 universities use across the country. The Common Application is a little bit different. It's very good, but that's a good place for the students to start. Once the student has finished applying to colleges, then they need to go into their Naviance and add colleges that they're applying to. That helps us to know what they're doing and where they're going. If a student is needing a letter of recommendation, and usually it's for Common App schools or for scholarships, they should contact the teacher directly. Tell them not to just send an email. Ask the teacher to Zoom with them, to talk to them so that they can ask personally. It's real hard for a teacher to turn down a student who asks to see them personally and ask them face-to-face to write a letter of recommendation. And it's also their responsibility, and that's what we want to do and instill in that, is their responsibility to ask for a letter of rec. I wrote 21 this summer that students contacted me and asked me to write their letters. And that's the kind of things that we want them to do. We want them to take the responsibility and ask for those letters of rec. And once they've done that face-to-face with the teacher, then put it in Naviance and make that request through Naviance. Because of the pandemic, we have a lot of things that are different. College visits going to be pretty tough to do face-to-face. Mr. Rotana will cover that in a little bit. But we'll be having virtual tours that'll be available for your students. We'll be sending out information through the PTSA, through Skyward, through the Family Access, about the different virtual webinars that will be going on by the universities being held. One of us on our campus, one of our staff, will always be with the kids while they're Zooming so that we can make sure and ensure their safety. Now, one of the good things about this pandemic is most of the universities are going test optional, which means they're not requiring the SAT or the ACT for this class of 2021 applying to college. So you need to double check and make sure your child is checking the university to see what's happening. If you're wondering how to get into Naviance, it's a new way. The student should type in student.naviance.com/StratfordHS, and they'll be using their Spring Branch email and password to get into Naviance. So it's different than it was last year. If you're having trouble getting your login to get into Naviance, make sure that you email one of the counselors. We can reset your password and send you a link, and it'll reset it and you can get into your Naviance that way. Well, Naviance has a lot of things for the students. You know, there's career quizzes, there's Strengths Explorer, but really one of the fun things is Road Trip Nation, where there's a lot of videos about different people in the world. You know, one of our more famous comedians was actually a classic pianist major at the University of Texas. And a lot of people didn't realize that Jamie Foxx went to University of Texas to major in classical piano. So it's that those Road Trip Nation tells about different people and what their roads to their success. You know, one of the other beautiful things inside Naviance is the college super match. And for students, what we need them to do is to put the parameters that they want for a college. Like if you want a private school, if you want a public university, if you want a small, you want a large, if you want athletics, or I want a theater, or I want orchestra, anything that our student wants, they can put in this college super match and find universities across the country that meet their needs. And you might find some universities that you haven't thought about that have great scholarships for students with their needs, and will match them up better than what we think our normal 2 universities that everybody wants to go, except for our boss man who went to Rice. So we got to, you know, but it's one of those things that we're looking at. So the college super match, I would encourage our students to use. And the last thing I would like to say is don't hesitate to contact any of the counselors. If you don't get an answer, please reach out to me and I will see what's going on. Mr. Rotana and I, you know, we'll get back to you and explain things that are going on and try to solve the problems. So Mr. Rotana, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. Okay, so next we have Ms. Hudek, who is our campus testing coordinator. Ms. Hudick, the floor is yours.
Hold on, Freddie,
Yes.
quickly, because I think they kind of want to hear from Jim on this a little bit. And then this will be a great segue for Megan. Jim, I don't know if you can see the questions. They're talking about the ACT and the SAT and about colleges that are still looking at test scores. If you can read those questions real quick, maybe you can respond.
Yeah, one of them says the ACT and the SAT is largely optional, but they're strong. If it's your child's strongest part of his application, submit it. And what you do to submit those scores is you either log into the College Board or ACT.org and you request that particular score to be sent directly to the university you're applying to. So it's up to the student to log into their ACT or their SAT and then be able to send it to the correct university going from there. The second question is this, what score should you send? Is it, some universities are not, I would check with each individual. If the university is saying it's optional, I would not send it unless you think it's a score that they don't need. Their transcript should stand on its own, and their essays and the things that they've written for applying to college should help the students stand on their own. Now, some scholarships are going to require the ACT and the SAT. So that's one of the things that you have to look at. Each particular question that you're looking at, or each particular university has different requirements. You really need to check each and every university. Is there another question I missed?
Look at the ones about Naviance. I'll answer the one about the transcripts. So the reason why the transcripts hadn't been sent yet is because we got AP scores, and some students needed to have that distinguished mark put on the transcript based on how they scored, and that has to be put on centrally. And so I believe it was just getting completed yesterday or today. And so Ms. Webb asked and said, we've got these requests. Do we send them out? But we didn't want to send them out if they were not accurate and they didn't have the most updated information, because you were just going to request another one. It's unfortunate and it's sad to say that we were waiting for that, but that is the God's honest truth. So what should be happening is all of those transcript requests should be getting sent out over the next couple of days, but it was the delay in getting the actual AP scores for those who took them and get it pushed out to know that everything had been updated. And even when it came to the EOC scores, the waivers, that needed to be on the transcript to say that students had met that. And that also was done centrally. And so it should be any day now.
Well, just and mention that our process here on campus is going to be that every Friday at 2 o'clock, all the counselors will be in a meeting. We'll be sitting down and going over all the transcripts that need to be sent out, which students have completed their FERPA, which students have matched their Common App to Naviance, and which students have put the colleges I'm applying to inside Naviance. In other words, we cannot send a transcript through Naviance until a student has put the colleges I'm applying to, tell us how they're applying. And one of the things that the students will do, it'll be a question mark. Well, when it's a question mark inside Naviance, we can't send anything. So the student has either got to tell us that they are applying directly to the university, and that's usually through Apply Texas is direct to the university, or they get an independent application straight to the university. Or if they're using the Common App, they got to mark the Common Application as their method of sending the applying to that university. So we have to know how they applied before we can even send the transcripts through Naviance. And like we have some requests in Naviance for transcripts, but the student hasn't put any schools in there. So the schools have to be in Naviance, had to be colleges I'm applying to, have to be added before we can send it. And one of the things that we're going to do every Friday is we're going to check the system. Has the student completed their applications? Have they done their FERPA waiver inside the Common App and the FERPA waiver on Skyward? Because we're not supposed to release transcripts without that FERPA waiver. And then making sure that every piece of that puzzle is done. If a student is not complete that counselor has to come back on Monday and talk to the students and get everything together to make sure, whether we're doing it through a Zoom or we're doing through a phone call, but we're going to walk through the process with the student to make sure that that student has everything that they need to go through Naviance. The question about how does Naviance connect with Apply Texas and the Common App, the student is telling us when they're adding the colleges to the university, they're adding the colleges that they're applying to using the Apply Texas and the Common App. Now, when they're finished their Common App, they will come on to Naviance and match the email address that they used in the Common App to Naviance. It'll ask, there's a big red bulletin that says you need to match your Common App with your Naviance. And once you match the Common App with the email address and their birth date, it'll then automatically match and make sure that we're ready to send. So
Jim, if you want, I was going to say, take these questions, look at them. We'll let Megan go ahead and present so you can be prepared to go, because it'll keep going. So just go ahead and answer those. Megan, if you're ready. And if you want to type them in, Jim, you can type them in. But we'll also give you a chance to come back. And any questions you think need to be shared out loud, you'll have the floor. We appreciate you, my friend. Who that? Light it up.
All right. Well, hello, Stratford, America. I am one of the newbies on campus, but I have been a part of the Spring Branch ISD family for about 10 years now. But I'm extremely excited to be over at Stratford. So a couple of things that I'm going to be talking about in regards to testing this year follows along the line with some of the questions you all had regarding SAT or ACTs. Any of the AP courses that your kids may be involved in, and some of the tests that they will be taking for that to earn some college credit. So if you need anything, please go ahead and put your questions in the chat, or you can always email me, megan.hudick@springbраnchisd.com. So a couple of potential testing dates, and I do say potential because we know that right now things are changing quite rapidly because of COVID. So for your seniors, and I did see somebody that asked about if their son can retake the SAT. We do have an option of a school day SAT that should be happening sometime within the month of October. And that would be typically when our seniors will go ahead and take that test. Our AP testing, that tends to happen after a course has been completed. So that would be at the end of the year, around May. And then if your child needs to make up any type of EOC testing in order for them to receive their credits for high school graduation, that tends to take place throughout the year, so December, May, and June. Please know that any in-person testing that may be held on campus throughout the course of the year, we'll make sure that we follow any and all safety measures that are put in place by Spring Branch ISD. One of the first things that would be coming up for seniors in October will be that school day SAT. This just gives them an opportunity to basically sit and take the exam at their home campus instead of having to go somewhere else. It also gives them an opportunity to gain access to those forms of higher education. There are steps that your kids can follow right now to help themselves prepare for any type of SAT testing, all of which can be located on the College Board website. It gives them free practice through Khan Academy. So I would suggest going there if they haven't already done that. Creating a College Board account. Some of your students may already have one simply because of AP classes. It'll walk them through where they can send their scores if they're choosing to do that for particular colleges, and how they may even be able to earn some scholarships, which is always a great thing to have, free money for school. If your student is planning on taking an SAT test over the course of a weekend, same process. They're going to go through College Board, register for those exams that way, provide them with their full name, make a decision on whether or not you're going to be sending your scores to your particular college or university. And then it'll tell you, you can choose your location, how to print out your admission ticket, and what you're going to need for that day, and how to prepare to be successful. One of the updates that is coming from College Board, and I know someone asked a question, I think it was in regards to ACT and testing having to be rescheduled because of the pandemic. ACT and SAT are both, they're being a lot more flexible than they normally are. So they're giving more opportunities to go in and take Saturday administrations. So it's really just getting onto either College Board for SAT or getting onto the ACT websites and looking through and seeing what dates are available so that you can sign your kids up. If your student is taking an AP course this year and they are planning on taking an AP exam so that they can receive credit for college, they'll go ahead and they will be giving join codes from their teachers within the first week of school or so that they can go ahead and join their classes. Once they have registered for those AP courses, then they should be able to go ahead and register for those AP exams that will be taking place in May. We are going to want to make sure that our students are registered for those exams no later than October 23rd so that we can make sure that we have plenty of exams for them to be able to take. This is also on the College Board website for any of the AP classes so that parents and students have an opportunity to go through and look to see which courses will be giving their exams when. One of the things that has changed for AP exam registration and fees for this particular school year because of these unusual circumstances is that if your child registers for an exam, but they don't end up taking it, they're not going to have any type of late fee penalty placed upon them for that. So they're still going to be paying for the test. They just won't have to pay the additional money for not being able to take it. And then eventually we will have a testing area on the Stratford High School webpage so that I can go through and post information regarding anything having to do with testing, specific dates, how you can go about doing accommodations for your students if that's something that you're trying to do for College Board or ACT, and so on. If you have any further questions, please contact me. Again, my name is Megan Hudick, and I am super excited to be a part of Stratford America.
All right, so Megan, you've got several.
I'm sure.
Several. You got a lot of questions in here, but I did see someone asked if we were going to take the questions and be able to, post them later. And so the answer is yes. Our good person and our good friend in technology, Petra Aguanaga, she's on here. She pulls the attendance for these meetings, and she also pulls every single question down. And so what we can do, we get those questions, we can take time and provide an answer to them. So when we post the questions, along with the posted webinar, you can scroll through and see, here are the questions that were asked, and these are the answers. Now, the only thing I'm going to say is, if we answer that question on August 21st, 2020, that answer might change by September 21st. So don't hold us to it and say, you answered this on this date. As of the date we answer, that would be the correct answer at that time. And so I'll let you answer those questions, but I will cover a couple things that I did see. As far as Spring Branch's commitment to trying to ensure that we provide the opportunity for testing. So as a district, we stopped providing testing due to limit the interaction of students and staff due to the COVID pandemic. However, we are in conversations and putting a plan in place because we want to be able to offer students the opportunity to take the PSAT and the SAT like our district provides every single year. And so this information, it still has to, it goes to senior staff, it goes to our board of trustees. And so until it is officially approved, then You know, we can only tell you that we're talking about it. But the commitment that we're trying to make to our students is we know our families and our students are used to being able to take the exam at our home campus. And we are working with Dr. Haffey and his team to look at possible ways to ensure that can we provide a testing environment where students can socially distance, that we can have proctors and still give them the opportunity to take it at Stratford. And so the answer is not no. The answer is we are planning forward unless there is something that prevents us from doing that. So as of now, all of our efforts is to try to make it happen at Stratford. But again, we need to have the approval to make sure it happens. So we will keep fighting and keep pushing to try to give your students the opportunity to take that test at Stratford. I also saw there was a question about Naviance and students possibly being involved or not being involved as far as logging in and not logging in. We know that on a typical year, getting all kids to participate through Naviance was already a challenge. With kids not being at school, it's even a greater challenge. But that is something that I think we can do with our seniors. If we have this built-in Spartan time every day, we can be strategic with those Spartan time teachers and with those students. So all of the burden is not on the counselor and the post-secondary counselor. We can tap into these Spartan time teachers to connect with students, whether they're in person or whether they're virtually, to make sure that any information they're missing, that it really literally is going to take a village to make sure that all of our kids are prepared to be successful. So we will look at all options to ensure that every kid gets connected, that they understand all the information that is coming out. We used to be able to say ACT, SAT, community service, but again, with a lot of schools saying we're not looking at the ACT and the SAT, but now it's our job as a campus to say, then what is it that a campus is looking? We know the SAT and SAT may not be a deal breaker, but if it's extremely high, it can also help. But at the same time, instead of saying colleges and campuses are not just looking at ACT or SAT, our students need to know this is what they are looking at. So does that mean extra community service? Does it mean what your GPA was prior to COVID-19? Does it mean your extracurricular activities? That's the information that parents, especially this group, really wants to know and students need to know. What is it going to take to get my kid into the college of their choice? And so those are questions that our counseling team will be looking for. Megan, since you've had a chance to look at this, is there anything that I need to address now before we go on? Because I know we're still going to have a chance to come back later and answer questions live, but is there anything pressing that needs to be addressed right now?
Not that I know of. I'm trying to go through and answer some of the questions as I see them as well.
And again, you and Jim, if there's questions that you think everyone generally needs to hear, bookmark those and you can answer those out live at the end. All right, Freddie, who's next?
Next, we have the one and only Coach Adcock.
Hi there, senior parents. We are excited to get to work with your athletes this year. I'm Jenny Adcock. I am our volleyball coach, and I'm one of the assistant CADs on campus. I do not have a fancy PowerPoint presentation, just like a coach, right? But we do have a few things that we want to touch base with you guys about, make sure that some athletic updates are getting home to you. One of the big concerns right now, obviously, is student athlete safety. Right now, volleyball, football, cross country, golf, swim, and fall tennis are all, we've all been given permission to work out with our athletes outdoors. So for swim and volleyball, we're getting a little creative outside, but it's been a lot of fun. And I can tell you that our athletics department has taken the directions for our protocol very seriously, and our coaches have done a really good job, I think, enforcing that protocol, and the athletes are very willing to participate. We don't get a whole lot of pushback. I think that the vast majority of them are just so excited to be working out together again and back on campus. But the district's policy on mask wearing is when you are not physically working out, you are wearing a mask, you are socially distant from your teammates and from your coaches. And when you are working out, it is very strongly encouraged. So basically what it looks like most of us are doing is that athletes are wearing their masks when they're working out, unless it's something super strenuous, like running bleachers or sprints or something like that. We also do know that there are athletes that have underlying conditions, something like asthma. And so we also take that into consideration when we are enforcing their mask wearing during working out. So if you have any questions about the mask wearing, social distancing, the disinfecting, how often they're using hand sanitizer, I encourage you to talk to your child's individual head coach so that you can get some details. We all had to write an extensive protocol list of what we are going to do. So all of that should be pretty readily available to you guys. So things are a little bit different right now between in-season sports and out-of-season sports. So I mentioned, I think it's 6 sports that are in season right now: volleyball, football, cross country, golf, swim, and tennis. And we are the only sports that are allowed to work out with our athletes right now for strength and conditioning and for sport-specific instruction. All out-of-season sports are still just kind of communicating to their athletes via social media or however those coaches communicate. Once we start school on Monday, everything is virtual during the school day. So from first period all the way through 8th period, A day, B day, and AB day to start the season, to start the school year. Everything is virtual. So those coaches will be having Zoom links, just like an academic class would have a Zoom link. And coaches are doing things like character development, leadership development. There are the steroid video and safety PowerPoint that we coaches are required to show all athletes every single year. So that's something that coaches may choose to do. They may also choose to send home workouts for athletes to do on their own. So the virtual piece during the school day, whether your athlete's double blocked for boys soccer first and second period, maybe you've got a son that plays boys basketball and that's in the middle of the day, or you've got a female track athlete and she's double blocked at the end of the day. All of those coaches should be communicating with those athletes during the day, but the actual individual piece may be a little bit different from sport to sport. Those sports that are in season, we will be still allowed to work out once school starts, but it will be outside of the school day. So it will be a little bit similar to what we're doing right now. And then once we are back on campus full-time, face-to-face, there's a little bit of difference between those students who have opted for virtual learning and those students who have opted for face-to-face. Students who have opted for virtual learning cannot come up to school during the school day to work out during their athletics period. That is not to say they can't run their miles with cross country before the school day starts, and that's not to say they can't work out with their football team after the school day is finished. But during the school day, if your child has chosen virtual learning after Labor Day, that child is not allowed on campus because they have chosen virtual learning. I think that we have tweeted that out a couple of times, and I know that coaches have tried to make sure that their programs understand that. But that's just kind of the policy and how it's working from here on out. One thing that we need to make sure that you guys remember to do, just like every year, is take care of the paperwork that is required to participate in athletics. One of those things is the physical. This year, the UIL changed the requirements for the physical in light of the pandemic. And instead of automatically requiring every athlete to get a physical, they are now having you guys answer some medical history questions on rank 1. And then our wonderful and fabulous trainers will evaluate your answers to those questions to determine whether or not a physical is required. Obviously, you're welcome to still get your well child exam, but as far as an athletics physical, it just kind of depends on your answers to the medical history questions. Other than that, the forms are the same as they have always been on rank 1. Things like the consent to treat, your insurance, the UIL forms, all of those things are the exact same as they always are, and you would fill them out the same way you would every year. So I think that is pretty much all of the athletics updates we have for you guys. Mr. Barnes, are there any questions that I need to answer about athletics in the chat box?
I don't think people like to ask you questions because there's nothing about athletics in there.
Maybe I'm just that good explaining things.
Yeah, without a PowerPoint presentation.
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good.
There was one
That's good.
question about games, playing
Are they going
Yes,
to play
ma'am.
games against other schools?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, ma'am, or yes, sir. Whoever posed the question, there will be games played against other schools. I know my volleyball schedule is pretty much finalized at this point. The football schedule has been posted online on our Booster Club Facebook page. So competitions are being scheduled. There will be COVID-related safety protocol taken into consideration during those competitions, as far as athletes wearing masks on the sidelines, how many fans are allowed in gymnasiums or stadiums, what the officials have to do to make sure that they've been pre-screened properly. I think in the past 2 or 3 weeks, I've had over 10 hours of meetings to talk about protocol for competition. So it's definitely definitely being taken very seriously by all of the coaching staff, whether it's here at Stratford or coaches in Spring Branch or in our 17-6A competitive district, or even all of Greater Houston and Texas. I'm on several group emails and group texts, and all the coaches across the state are taking this very seriously to make sure that we take the health and safety of our athletes as our first priority, and then games and competition second priority. But we're trying to get our athletes back out on the field and in the pool and on the track and in the gym as quickly as we can to give them a full and complete season, especially for you guys that are seniors. I think all of us saw in the spring how devastating it was to a lot of those athletes and families who were graduating in 2020 and getting their senior years kind of ripped out from underneath them. So all of us are working really hard to make sure that your son or daughter still gets to have as special of a senior year as you dreamed of for them their entire lives.
Coach Adcock, that's amazing. You did a great job, even without a PowerPoint. Thank you. There are a couple questions on the chat box that you will be able to answer. And again, I want to say to everyone, we know that a lot of times, people hear Coach Rankin is the campus athletic coordinator, but we do have assistant coordinators, and they do a fantastic job as well. And so we are fortunate that Coach Adcock could join us here tonight and represent all of athletics. So if you can't get in touch with Coach Rankin, she is more than capable to answer any question you have or to find the answer. I will tell you also, Coach, that I was in the principals meeting, and Coach Hershey did speak up and say that they're almost ready. And don't ask me how long almost is, so I'm just going to say what she said, almost ready to officially release the volleyball and the football schedules and the great fanfare. And once we get that information, we will be sending that out in our communications as well. So all the schedules are tentative as of now. We don't expect them to, to change too much. But once that final stamp of approval is given, then we will communicate that. So
Yay.
the chat box is yours now. Freddie, is there anybody else that's presenting, or we can go to Jim so he can answer his questions?
I'm presenting a couple of topics, but we can go
Okay,
to
cool. Nope, you got it. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me a second. All right. So parking will open to juniors and seniors beginning August 31st through September 4th. During that week, we're going to be selling parking stickers during Spartan time, both lunches and after school. So this is going to be done at the snack bar, which is by the south entrance. Payment can be done online through My School Bucks. That's something that we are implementing this year, and it should make things a lot easier and quicker for parents and students. You can pay through My School Bucks, cash, or check. You have to make sure that you bring a completed agreement form, a copy of a current driver license, and proof of current insurance. Students who do not have parking stickers are going to receive the first warning beginning September 21st. So you get the first warning, there's a sticker put on your car. It's bright orange, you can't miss it. Second warning, you get the same sticker. Unfortunately, by the third warning, you do get towed, and that's at the owner's expense. And some of us on this panel have felt that pain before of getting towed. So please do not be towed.
Some of us don't like stickers in our windows. It happens.
Yes. So the information can be found at the link below, or you can just Google Stratford High School parking information. You can just email me and we will make that readily available for you. So parking permits will be sold throughout the year, but beginning in, I would say, mid to late October, we will open up to underclassmen if there are still slots available. College visits. As Mr. Harrington mentioned, each junior and senior gets 2 college visits per year. It is a little different this year because of our current situation, but traditionally, you can pick up a college visitation form from the grade level office. We're on the 3rd floor. While you're on your visit, you'll complete that form. Whenever the student returns, they'll submit that form to the attendance office. As I mentioned, this semester is a little unique, so college visits will be depending on who is offering them. If you have any questions about whether your college visit will be excused, please, please, please do not hesitate in reaching out to me. Textbooks are all online this year. If your student feels the need that they need a hardcover or a hard copy of the textbook, please email our new textbook clerk. His name is Anestes Arias, and he is at anestes.arias@springbrancisd.com. You can email him and schedule a time and place to pick up your textbooks. I'm really excited about this announcement. So Tri Theta is a club that is offered to senior girls, and they support athletics in various different ways. I can't even begin to explain or do them any justice by how hard these young ladies work to make our athletics team really feel that home field advantage. We have new faculty sponsors, and they are Miss Alyssa Davidson and Miss Marcy Baker. So if your student is interested in joining Tri Theta, their remind code is @TriTheta, or you can email them the questions and they'll be more than glad to help you. Now this slide, I'm not sure if this is something we're going to talk about right now with Mr. Barnes or Mr.
Yep, I can go ahead and do it.
All right, there you go. The floor is yours, sir.
Great. All right, so exemptions. Every year, exemptions are given to, in the fall, they're given to the seniors. And in the spring, multiple grade levels get exemptions. As you know, exemptions are tied to specific criteria, levels of demonstrating academic mastery, and also meeting a required number of attendance criteria as well. And so every year this comes up, what do I have to do to earn my exemptions? And unfortunately, what history has taught us is students, unfortunately, will come to school under the weather in order to keep an exemption. Now, traditionally in the fall, the seniors are only given 1 exemption. They're not given 2, 3, 4, 5. They can only exempt 1 class. However, we met as a district, and there's only 2 high schools in our district who offer the opportunity for exemptions in the fall, and that is Stratford and 1 other high school. And so after talking with my colleagues at the other high school and speaking with district personnel and reviewing it on campus, we have decided that it's probably not in our best interest to have an opportunity to provide exemptions for this fall, because we do not know what the fall is going to look like. And I'm saying that not because we don't want kids to have an exemption, because we do. However, we can't say that if you miss more than 5 days that you are going to lose your exemption. Because as you know and understand, sometimes people have to stay home out of an abundance of caution, even though they may not be positive, or they may, may have been around someone else. And what our district guidelines and campus guidelines are, we're so serious about asking parents and students to self-screen daily, to say, hey, if you have a fever, if you're not feeling if you're feeling under the weather, don't risk it, stay home, log on. You can still get the credit, you can still attend, but we don't know what that criteria and what those parameters are going to look like. And so what our goal is, if we can suspend the fall exemption, because it's only 1, This gives us a chance to figure out what criteria can be put in place come the spring semester. As a senior, you want to have peace of mind of knowing, okay, this is the criteria. If I take this AP test, if I have this amount of attendance, if I make this level of mastery, I can earn exemptions in X amount of courses. And that makes life for seniors so much easier as you prepare to go into graduation. And so it is our goal is to be able to try to offer that opportunity for our seniors come the spring in its full entirety, if at all possible. But we need to do our due diligence this semester to kind of look at the data and say, if a student demonstrates 80, 85% mastery, does the attendance piece really need to count? Or do we need to up the number of attendance? I mean, it's just so many different things. And I can't say we should go from 5 to 15 because, again, some things you can control, and then there are some things you cannot control. So we are going to suspend that one fall exemption, and we'd rather tell you this ahead of time, and I will put this in the information on Sunday as well, and kind of explain this, the rationale behind it. It wasn't just a knee-jerk reaction. There was a lot of thought put into this, and there's a reason why. And so I'd rather tell all the students and the parents up front now, instead of saying sometime in October or November, we're not going to be able to offer exemptions because the attendance is all over the place. That's not fair to the students. So let's go ahead and tell everyone now so that that's one less thing to worry about. What do I have to do to earn my one exemption? There's not an exemption. You take your test, you'll work with those teachers, but the goal is to try to find a way to have exemptions in its entirety in the spring, if at all possible. Unfortunately, the reality is we cannot say exactly what this school year is going to look like. And I can't tell you that we will be in school X amount of days or out of school X amount of days. So it literally is take it a day by day, week by week basis. So exemptions, unfortunately, I am so sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I would rather sacrifice the one exemption in the fall to make sure we can give you all your exemptions in the spring. And that will be our goal. All right, Mr. Ratana, you can continue on with your presentation, and any questions in the chat box later that want to talk about exemptions, COVID, HOSA, Guthrie Center, I'll answer all of those questions.
So that is actually my final slide. And the last things I want to say is, you know, although the way that you envision your child's senior year to be has changed, I assure you that the passion, love, and affection that these staff members here at school are working with has not changed one bit. So please just rest assured we're doing the best that we can to make sure that your student senior year comes out to a very memorable one. Do not hesitate in reaching out to me for any type of question that you have. I do speak Spanish, and I say that because I know sometimes some of our families hesitate in reaching out because they feel that language barrier will get in the way. So please don't hesitate. I speak Spanish, I read it, I write it. If there's another language, I assure you we'll find a translator. So don't let anything stop you from reaching out to us and making sure that we address all your questions and concerns. All right, Mr. Barnes, I'm done for the day.
All right, Jim, we're gonna go back to you, let you answer any of those questions. You need a minute, Jim? You still trying to work on something? Because we can go.
Let me finish this last question.
That's fine. Megan, are you ready, Megan?
You go for it. I was answering questions as well.
Okay, give me 1 second, I'll be ready. I misspelled universities for sure. I think I've answered about 15 questions quickly.
Don't worry. The more you answer, the more questions you'll get.
Yeah. So a lot of the questions were, how do we match the common application to Naviance? And basically, once a student adds the colleges I'm applying to, and they've completed their applications in the Common App or Apply Texas, they come back to the Common App and they'll match the email address and their birth date to what they used when they were applying for the Common App. And that will automatically match it. And then inside Naviance, Naviance takes over. And how Naviance works is once the student is applied to the college and they put them inside Naviance, every Friday we're sitting down reviewing it. And the reason we chose Friday was that we'll get all the requests for the week. Miss Webb, our registrar, will be checking to make sure the FERPAs are done, make sure all the legal things are there. The transcripts will have already been loaded up into Naviance. So then it's for us to sit down and review to make sure that each and every student hasn't missed something. Like one of the questions was, inside here was what my student has submitted requests for transcripts 2 weeks ago. But when I just checked the student inside Naviance, the student had not added any colleges I'm applying to. Well, we can't send a transcript without having that knowledge inside Naviance for us to upload, because if we send the transcript just either through the mail or something else, they don't know which student to link it to because the application hasn't been completed or they haven't told us which way to link it. So Naviance can't link it to the correct student. So one of the things that we have to reiterate with the students, and we're working on resending out something that we sent out last spring, is to make sure that students know exactly step by step how the process works. But they have to put the colleges I'm applying to inside Naviance. They have to tell us how they want to apply so that we can, do on our side, make sure that everything is correct. Because not only are we checking on the students, we're also back checking on the teachers, because the teachers have a responsibility besides uploading the letters of rec. There's a teacher recommendation form. And if the teachers haven't completed that recommendation form, then we can't send out the letters of rec from the teachers. So it's a very extensive process, and we just have, and we're going to have a new college and career focus counselor. So we want to make sure that everything is correct before we send it. The reason transcripts haven't gone out because there were things not on the transcripts that were supposed to be there that we don't want to send out. Another thing that people ask is about, should I put my rank on? Well, that's a family decision, but state law requires the top 10% rank to be listed on a transcript. There is a form inside Skyward, the family access, under the portfolio for the class rank that needs to be completed and submitted to the registrar. One of the things that you have to know, if you decide to put class rank and then that rank is on the transcript, we can't back it off. That the district policy says once rank is listed on the transcript, we can't take it off. And give it, for instance, what is the best advice about asking for rank? Right now, the top 10% of our class are valedictorians. We have approximately 51% of 51 students who are valedictorians, who have a perfect GPA based on the Spring Branch system. So a student who is number 2, who has has 1A at Stratford, would be ranked number 52 on his transcript. The best advice we would give was tell you not to put it on the transcript, but let a university rank him, because a university is going to rank the student number 2 because he only has 1B. Because they assume a 1A is everybody who has 1A would be ranked number 1. They have 1B, they would be ranked number 52 on our side, but the university would rank them would say they should be number 2 in their class. So that's some advice that when we're talking to kids, we can't tell you exactly what to do. That's a family decision, but you have to evaluate where you are and what's best for your child. If the university requires rank, then you put the rank on it. But if the university doesn't require it, then you have to make a family decision on that. I think those are the biggest questions everybody asks. I don't know if I've missed anything to go from there. This question says, I know the deadline about including our student ranking is due in October. If we apply to colleges now, should we sign the form? If you don't want the rank on for the colleges you're applying on right now, you wait. You ask if you want the rank on it, you submit it right now. So that's a decision you have to make.
Okay. All right, Jim. I I'll let you see if there's anything else. Hudek, you can go ahead and answer your testing questions, and then I'll start covering HOSA, early child learning, and Guthrie.
I think I went through and addressed most of the testing questions that I could.
Were there
Sorry.
any that needed to be answered out loud that you think would be beneficial for everyone, just in case they weren't looking at the chat box?
Sure, let me go back and just double check. One of the questions was if a child can retake the SAT. They can take it as many times as they want to. Let's see. Somebody asked about AP scores and if they're sent automatically to the colleges or if it's optional. You actually have to go into the College Board website and select your request to send your AP scores. And Mr. Harrington, if I'm wrong about anything, please
No,
correct me.
You're 100% correct.
And I know there's quite a few questions about whether or not kids should take the time and effort to study for an SAT or ACT test right now, but not being sure whether or not they're going to actually be able to take it. I understand that that's frustrating, that you're preparing for something and there's a possibility that you might not be able to take it, but it does help overall with college preparedness. And so I would still do it. There's a lot of scholarships that can be offered as well by doing well on these exams. So even if some colleges right now may be waiving the SAT and ACT score as a determination of whether they're going to be getting into that school or not, it can help in more ways than just that application. And there is a possibility that that's just what I would say for that. I would still take the opportunity to study, to prepare, and to enroll to take those exams because they are helpful. And for someone like myself that did not have money to go to college, scholarships are super helpful to be able to do that. So that's one way that you can get your kids some money for school.
Jim, I think there's a question about the performance acknowledgement on the transcript because someone says, how does the AP exam results affect the transcript? Can you explain that?
Yeah, basically on the transcript, if a student has scored a 5 on their AP scores, there's an acknowledgement saying that they're like an AP scholar, but that's basically the only thing that appears about the AP on a transcript. Everything else about the AP scores the student has to submit directly from the College Board to the university. So AP scores are generally not on the transcript, just an acknowledgement if they've done an excellent job like a 5.
And those are, again, the district gets that information and they're able to mass add that to all those students at one time. And because those scores had come in centrally, it was supposed to be added on there. And so we unfortunately had sent out some transcripts because we thought everything was done. And then the parents and the students reached back out and said, hey, this is missing. And so because that wasn't, 100%, foolproof, then we said, okay, let's pause and make sure that when we start sending out the remaining transcripts, that they have everything on there so that it's not frustrating for our students and our parents. Okay, Ms. Johnson, I'm going to answer a few questions in general that have come up. I want you to look through anything that's not testing or counseling that I haven't addressed. Please be sure to remind me so I can try to answer that for everyone. Center. So specifically about the Guthrie Center, in order to limit the amount of interaction amongst students across the district, each school will only send their students to the Guthrie Center 1 day a week. And at Stratford, it will be Fridays. Fridays will be our days for our students to go to the Guthrie Center. Monday through Thursday, those students will stay on campus at a place to be determined, and they will be able to log on virtually and attend their classes and watch the instruction happening with the teacher at the Guthrie Center. On Friday, they will load the bus and they will be able to go to the Guthrie Center. Now, there is one caveat. If a student is virtual and they're not coming to Stratford for their classes, there is an exception that they can go to their Guthrie Center classes on that Thursday. So they can stay home for all other periods. I mean, on that Friday, I said Thursday, I misspoke. On that Friday, on the day that Stratford goes to the Guthrie Center, if a student is virtual, they can go to their classes because the classes over there, and there's a list of them, and we can get it to you, require in-person instruction at least one day a week in order to demonstrate mastery in that particular skill and in that subject. So while you may be able to go to Guthrie for that class, there is an exception for you to say, hey, I want to come to campus just to go to my athletic period, but then go home and do English and math. No, you're either all on campus or you're not all on campus. And the only exception would be for the Guthrie Center. As far as the early education classes, right now, we do not have permission for those students to go to the elementary schools. However, the teacher of that is working with our content directors to try to find a way, whether we are teaching, unfortunately, the kids are teaching through Zoom, or maybe later on find a way to successfully go and practice those skills. They're trying to be as creative as possible. We don't want kids to get out because they miss the opportunity, because there's a lot of great lessons to happen, but we've got to find a way to still make that experience meaningful for those students. Whatever the exact plan is right now, I don't have that answer, but the goal is to still try to find a way, just like HOSA. HOSA kids are not allowed to go to the hospital. They have restricted students, so you cannot go, obviously due to the COVID-19 outbreak. However, they are making arrangements within our campuses at Westchester and at the Guthrie Center to still provide opportunities for students to get a hands-on experience. So while we're not going to the hospital, they're still being creative, working with our staff, working with medical experts to do whatever they can to allow the students to still travel and get that clinical experience. So that is how that portion will work. Someone says there's a schedule for online distance learning. So unlike the spring where you could just log in and, you know, wake up at 12:30 and say, I'm going to do all my math today and I'm going to do all my English the next day, which is what my sixth grader tried to do. She tried to have one subject a day for the whole week. And so we quickly had to shut that down. We're going to follow our schedule, and the students will be in their classes. They'll follow A day, B day, and they will, whether they're in person or whether they're virtually, they're going to follow that same exact schedule. Someone has asked the question, does a kid have to be in the Zoom for 90 minutes? And I'm going to kind of give you an example. And I've shared this with all of our staff. I'll share it again tomorrow, and try to be realistic of what this may look like. Varies, it depends. I'm not going to put a requirement that says you have to be active for 60 minutes, 45 minutes, or the 85 minutes that we have. If you were in my English class, and if I were teaching to you, the first thing that you would probably do when you came into my class is I would say, all right, there's 10 minutes, and this is only on the first or the second day, because by the third day, I'm not going to tell you my procedures again. You're going to know when you enter my class, the warm-up is on the board, and whether you begin to do it or not, that's on you. When 10 minutes is up, if you're not done, then you're not getting the grade. So that's just how I ran my classroom. If I'm on a Zoom, I may bring my students in, and I might say, okay, you've got 10 minutes. I'm going to share my screen. Here's your warm-up. I'm going to take roll. After 10 minutes, I'll come back, stop the warm-up, and we'll begin our lesson. Unlike a classroom where I would have to stop and say, Freddie, Jenny, stop talking, get busy. I can be in here and I can say, Selena, Ruben, Scott, Sarah, Sheridan, I'm not going to ask you to stop talking. I'm just going to mute your screen. So now I can mute you so the kids shouldn't be able to talk while we're teaching the lesson. I wish we could have that mute button in person, but we can't, so we can use it while we're in Zoom. Now, after 10 minutes of doing the warm-up, I would bring you all back and we would go over and do our lesson. And I might teach for 20, 25 minutes. And as I'm going over my lesson, I would probably call on different people. And just like I'm sitting here and going through here, I say, Stacy, tell me this. Stephanie, Souza, I say Ted, Tracy. I call on kids in class, and I would do the exact same thing during this Zoom with my students. This lets students know that I am scrolling through and seeing what you're doing. You're engaged. I'm going to randomly call on you and you need to be paying attention. After 25 minutes of teaching this lesson, I may say, okay, I'm going to break you up in groups. I may let you work independently. I may say, okay, you put your avatar up. You've got 10, 15 minutes to work on this assignment. If you've got questions, I'll be walking around checking with you. So I might be sending in the chat, clicking on students, sending them a message. Do you understand this? Working with them. After 10 to 15 minutes, I might bring them back, do an exit ticket. All right, let's call it out. Jenny, give me your answer. Tell me what you did about this. And when Jenny gives that answer, I'm going to say, Ms. Johnson, Valerie, is she right? And if Ms. Johnson says she's right, why is she right? So you just can't tell me she's right, or you just can't tell me she's wrong. You need to tell me why she's right or why she's wrong. And then from that, that's when we have good, healthy conversations. We talk about it. I might close that out, and that might take 60, 65 minutes of a lesson. So now I'm left with about 15 minutes. As the teacher, I might say, if you understand today's lesson and you don't have any questions, you can log off, begin your independent work. This Zoom is still going to be open for those who want to stay here. It's just like me sitting at my desk. You can raise your hand or come to me and I'll answer your questions. And I just might be sitting here waiting for you or still checking on those who are still in the Zoom. Kid might log off and log back on and say, you know what, I started my independent work, but they still know they have access to that teacher during that 90-minute block. But they may not be live teaching the entire time, but they have access. And so what I've said to the teachers, you're not going to just preload a video and say, okay, here's 30 minutes and be done. You're just not going to teach with a kid for 30 minutes and say, okay, now take the next 55 minutes and work independently. You need to be just like a classroom where you are available and either working with small groups, delivering whole group instruction. And for those who understand, go ahead and go. And those who want to stay here, then we can have that. And I think that is a reasonable approach, because it's different in science, it's different in math, English, social studies, and electives, but the expectation is that students are engaged and that teachers are available to answer those questions. I know that's a long example, but I can't think of a better way to try to share with you how it might be active, independent, group work, broken up, all within a class period. So, all right, Ms. Johnson, tell me, what other things have I not scrolled up through do I need to talk about?
Mr. Barnes,
Yes,
can I provide clarification on a question that's gotten some conflicting answers?
go ahead.
So the question has popped up, what happens with office aid students, off-campus study hall students who are virtual? So during the
answer, and what have you responded? Because I got an email the other day. I don't know did I forward y'all the email that I got about that?
You did, and there's been some conflicting answers. So I just want to clarify. For the first 2 weeks while these kids are virtual, they do not have to report or email for attendance purposes. If and when a student returns back to campus and they have an assigned location for office aid or for study hall, they do have to report to that location. But for the time being, virtual students do not have to report for attendance purposes, whether it be through Zoom or email.
Good answer. At least I forwarded you out the email. I'm glad I did.
Okay, you had a COVID question about
Okay.
like, will the whole school shut down if someone gets it? Kids in the passing period, how will we know, that kind of thing?
All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. What is the school's plan in light of COVID? How will I know that my student is safe? And are you going to put it on the marquee if a student gets COVID? The answer is no, we're not going to put it on the marquee. And that goes for staff or students. But this is really, a lot of people have focused on the district's answer of we can do something from here all the way to here. And literally the response that a pre-K center or an elementary school takes is vastly different than what is happening on the secondary campus. At a pre-K center or elementary school, if a student or a faculty member ends up having symptoms or testing positive, you can easily track and trace and say who left the room, where did they go, and who were they around. And because they've been only in that room because there isn't that mobility, you can probably send that whole classroom home for 14 days. And still allow everyone else to return. That doesn't happen at the secondary level because students move, teachers move, there's the passing period, there's the lunch, there's a number of different things that can happen. So the response could be anything from shutting the campus down for 5 days, shutting it down for 2 weeks, not shutting it down at all. It can easily vary depending on what's the likelihood of possible exposure. And so I believe in those instances, there will be a number of different people. It won't be just a principal decision. It'll be a decision made by our safety officers, our superintendent, associate superintendents to see, do we know where there's a confirmed case? Do we know who's been exposed? And what's the likelihood that this exposure has spread throughout campus? And so because we haven't been back with this, I don't have a scenario. And a lot of times people ask, is there a threshold? If it's 2 kids that test positive, do you shut down the school? Is it 5? I can't tell you because every case varies and it depends, or if a teacher. So the other portion is that I want you all to understand is this information, about someone's health, that's protected by HIPAA. So you just can't go out and say Ray Morris Barnes tested positive for COVID, okay? Because you could get in a lot of trouble for that. So we have to be very careful. Even in the instance where we know someone tests positive, as the principal, I know that information, but I can't even go share that with my assistant principals. And if anyone is exposed, I can't tell them who the person is. I have to say, Megan, you've been exposed to someone with COVID-19. I need you to self-quarantine for 14 days, or unless you get a negative test result sooner, and then give that to me. I can't tell her who she was. She can't ask me. If the person who tested positive wants to tell them, well, that's their business. But I can't even share that with someone. So I know there's a lot of questions and concerns about students and staff, like how will we be notified? You just might get information that says, unfortunately, there's been a case of COVID-19. We're going to shut down the school for 5 days. Students are expected to log on and continue their classes virtually. So what we are getting for the first 2 weeks, that will be the case of what it would look like in the event that we have to all go remotely. The only other time I don't think that would happen if there's a hurricane and then you don't have power and you can't log on. But anyway, let's not talk about that, even though.
Okay. Along those same lines, as someone asked about like seating on the Guthrie bus, like protocols, will they be distance learning? And could you also share the percent of students that have chosen to come back to school and stay at home?
I got it. Okay, so seating on the bus. I haven't got the final roadmap of what the bus would look like. I do know this in regards to the bus, and even on campus, students are required to wear a face mask. Okay, so you have to wear a face mask. Now, shields are being provided to students to have, but if the lesson calls for it or the teacher says it's okay because I need to see your face, it is totally permissible for them to wear the shield, but the face mask is the preferred and the required form of face covering. At this time, also as a district, we've talked with healthcare providers, and the gaiters are acceptable form of face covering as well. I know that can be a contentious topic, just like anything can be a contentious topic these days, but gaiters are allowed. Face masks are allowed. Face masks are the preferred method, and students must have a face covering at all time. Unless they're eating, then you can remove that face covering. But in regards to, so there was the bus piece, there was the face shield, and what was that last part they wanted me to answer, Val, about what?
They want to know the percentage.
Percentage. All right, so 68% of our student body has chosen to come in person. And every day we get different emails. Someone says, I want to stay home, or I want to come to school. And, we are doing our best for master scheduling purposes. We're trying to hold where we are because we're planning for that 68% to come. What we have not done and won't be able to do, because such a large portion of our campus is returning, we didn't create a total virtual English 1 teacher or a total Algebra 1 teacher, or so forth and so on. Once you start creating all those virtual sections, when there's such a high number of students who have opted to come to campus, you by default are forcing those in-person students to begin to stack up on top of each other. And so where you could theoretically say 68% of a class of 30 is going to be reduced by almost 30%, when you start creating pure in-person classes and pure virtual classes, then all of your in-person classes will increase to around the number of 30 students. And so instead, we want to keep the same schedule. We have a high number, and we've got to get good with teachers being able to deliver instructions to both types of students so that students are not behind.
How about, are there going to be pep rallies in the fall?
No. If there was going to be a pep rally, it would probably have to be an outside pep rally. And considering that it's still 95 degrees and 115% relative humidity, Ms. Johnson doesn't want to sweat from the top of her head. So if we can get the opportunity to have any type of pep rally, then we will. But some things we're just going to have to err on the side of caution. And as much as we can give our students that resembles a normal year, we will do our best. But we can't try to take normal and pack it into this year because it's only going to lead to frustration. So we want these students, there was nothing more frustrating last spring than to see the students not be able to have a prom, to see the students have their graduation moved and shifted and only be allowed to bring 4 people. You worked so hard and we couldn't provide it. And that was actually heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for the kids, for the families. There wasn't a good answer. And on the day of our graduation, then it poured down. And then we had to delay it even more. So, I mean, when it rains, it literally poured, you know, especially on our Stratford seniors. So our goal, while it may not happen right now and it might look different, we're going to try to find a way. Even if we're able to have a homecoming game in the fall, if we can't have a homecoming dance, maybe we push the homecoming dance to the second semester to still give the kids a chance to have that opportunity. So we've got to look differently. So instead of saying there's always a homecoming dance after the homecoming game, say, you know what, if we move it and we give them the opportunity, that's what counts, that's what matters. So we'll do our best.
Okay, a specific question about DE Earth Science class. How will that be done online?
That sounds like a Jim Harrington question.
Yeah. The DE classes, the dual enrollment classes, are through the University of Texas, but actually a classroom teacher here at Stratford is the teacher of record on our side. So it is actually a Stratford class delivering instruction that UT provides. So the student will be in a class just like a normal class. If they're doing virtual, they'll be virtually in the class with the other DE students. But it's directly online, and the first day of school and the first week of school, teachers will be explaining the process. Students who are taking DE classes will actually register during their DE class for the UT course. The grade is interesting because the student gets a grade from the UT, and they also gets a grade from the Stratford side. Most of the Stratford grade is based on what they're doing in the classroom. And the most of the UT grade is based on their testing or essays that they write that they're submitting to the professor. And a DE course is great. It's an experience for students to look at. But the best part about it, if a student doesn't like the UT grade, they can tell UT, I don't want it, and it never appears. It's like they never enrolled in the DE class on the UT side. But on the transcript side and on our side, it'll show that they were in a dual enrollment class. So it's a weighted class, just like an AP or pre-AP class.
Okay, thanks, Jim. One more, 3 more questions. This one's just a quick answer. The AP government test, if they're taking AP Gov right now, their AP exam, is it in the spring?
Yes, it's in May.
Okay,
All
thank
of them are in May.
you. Okay. And then what do students who are in the HCC class do when their class doesn't meet on Friday? What do they do during that period?
You know, what I answered that, but I'll answer it again. They actually have a study hall, or if they're at home, you know, like in the mornings,
Okay.
like if they have it first period or second period, or they have 7th and 8th, there can be into the classroom at home, but on Fridays they're at home.
Okay, and what about schedule changes?
We're going to be handling schedule changes after the first week. We need to get through our first week and survive. you know, we hire teachers based on what the student requests are, and we had 3 chances to request changes. So right now, we will only honor request changes if there is space available and it doesn't alter the schedule and their teachers, because that really messes up everything inside the system. So students had 3 opportunities. If they didn't take the opportunity, I don't want to be heartless, but it's hard for us to make changes now that we have so many of our elective classes are absolutely closed. There's not another seat in a bunch of almost every business class is closed, and several other classes are closed as well. So it's really tough to change the schedule at this point.
Thank you, Jim. One more question. Can they bring the cap and gown for their portraits, or is it only in the formal attire? If they have their own.
Megan.wolf@branchisd.com. She's communicating with that vendor. She has specific instructions, and she would be able to answer that question in its entirety.
Red Morse, there's a question about going to the Guthrie Center on the 28th of the 8th. They don't start going until after the 8th. Isn't that correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. The other one, Mr. Harrington, is a specific schedule change question that maybe you can address later. And I think that's all.
You know, sometimes, you know, a schedule change may have been requested, but because the schedule doesn't fit what that student wants, that schedule change may not be able to happen. You know, we have a lot of classes, especially among seniors, that are period specific. Like AP biology is only taught 3 and 4. If they're a basketball player or a volleyball player, I'll use that then they're stuck in 7th and 8th period athletics. And then if they're taking AP Calculus is only taught 6th and 8th, which is the same time volleyball is going on. So the AP Calculus would have to go to 6th period. And if they're in the dual credit program, then that forces dual credit to 1-2. So we can't make changes because their classes are so specific that we can't teach every class, every period. We have several classes that are only taught once a day. So those schedule changes sometimes can't happen because it's impossible to do.
There's a question. This is a really good question. Not saying that none of your questions are. This is just one I haven't heard in 2 nights. Is it possible that after the first 9 weeks, they have to change class due to more kids going in person? The answer theoretically is no.
No.
And I say that because the things that students need the most is continuity. They need the same teacher. They need to get into a routine, and that's what we're trying to build. So if there is a huge change for students based on those who may be flip-flopping and switching and going from in-person to distance, the goal would be try to maintain that continuity no matter what at all possible. So that would not be our goal, Ms. Acuna, is to change that schedule. We want to keep those kids there. And if we have to be creative to find more sections, then we will, but we want to keep those kids with those same teachers as much as possible.
And just to help you address that question, Pam Metcalf is building a virtual schedule that mirrors exactly our schedule as it is. So when a student moves from in-person to virtual or virtual to in-person, it's in the same classroom, same teacher. So we're not changing a student schedule at all.
We will send out the A and B calendar this weekend so that you can see it. On Monday, it will be all classes 1 through 8. And then we will go with an all A on Tuesday and an all B on Wednesday. And then it's already built. But the class times remain the same for all of those days, regardless.
That's all the questions.
I would say this, you know, I'm looking at, you said that, then you got 2 more questions.
I know, I'm sorry.
And that's okay. This is a day and age. Unfortunately, we can't have face-to-face meetings. And sometimes, you know, people have a bunch of questions. Sometimes they get asked multiple times. We just got to be patient. That's just the day and age that we're living in, and that's okay. So as much as you ask, we will continue to answer. The lunch schedule, it was released 2 days ago to the Spartan teachers. I will also include that this weekend based on what class the student is in to let them know if they have A lunch or if they have B lunch. So that will also be coming, but all teachers have that information now. So you can email the teacher and ask them, or you can wait for that message on Sunday. In closing, unless Al finds another question for us, when you start looking at everything that's happening, right when you think you have a good handle on things, there's another curveball that comes up. And, you know, I said it, you know, just talking about, you know, what was in the news today. And I was talking with our superintendent, and at that time, both of our watches went off and it said, hey, tropical depression, you know, 14 in the Gulf. She's like, are you kidding me? Is there really a storm? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she's like, we can't take anything else. And I said, I know. But that is why this is an example of why it takes all of us assuming the best of intentions of each other. And this situation, it hasn't been easy on you as a parent. It hasn't been easy on our students. It's not easy on our staff. It's not easy on us administrators. But it's also not easy on our superintendent and our board of trustees, because everyone is involved in this. And as much as we hate to hear it, because we've heard it since March, we are all in this same boat. We just have different seats on the boat. And the more we make this about our individual selves, the easier it is to get frustrated when things don't go the way that we want them to. But what I can tell you, as we as a campus and as we as a community, as a Stratford community, the more that we come together and have webinars like this and have open dialogue, ask the tough questions, answer the tough questions, and don't beat around the bush, the better this relationship will be, and the more successful we will be at making the best that we can for our students' senior year. This is not what we all envision, but I can tell you it won't be for a lack of effort by the Stratford staff that we will do everything we can to make sure that the class of 2021 feels like they're special and not left out. If we didn't get a chance to answer all your questions, Val, I see you got something there.
Yes, I got an email from Petra that Mary Lee Lopez has been raising her hand, and we didn't talk about how we can't see people. So I didn't know if we wanted to, you know, I don't know if people know we can't see them. So I didn't know if she wanted to type it in the box real quick, because she's been trying to get through, I think.
Great. So type your question, because we honestly can't see. The only people we can see are those that are presenting here, but I can scroll through and we can see the names of our participants.
Let's see. Well,
A good teacher has wait time, Val.
okay. Oh wait, here comes one.
Okay.
I don't know.
We will take all the questions that were asked tonight, and we will type up answers, and we will post that, and we'll get it posted for anyone who was not here. If you don't, thank you. Okay, Ms. Lopez, she doesn't have a question, Val, we're good.
Oh.
But if you do have a question that was not answered, alfredo.ratana@springbranchisd.com. He will be more than happy to take any question that you have and answer it. And if he doesn't have the answer, then he knows who to ask to get the answer, and that'll probably be Pam Metcalf. So I thank you all again for being here tonight. I hope you thought this was helpful. We look forward to the day when we can welcome you back to in the building. we appreciate you. The links aren't posted yet, but we will communicate just like we did through Skyward and through School Messenger and let you all know, here's the links and you can get to this recorded webinar and you'll have the list of the questions and the answers. We look forward to seeing your students virtually on Monday. If you haven't had a direct Spartan Time connection with your students and with yourself yet, please let us know so we can see what's going on with that. It is our intention to make sure we reach all of our students and all of our families before the end of this week, or at least through the weekend. Thank you so much. I hope you all, I would say drive safe, but hopefully you're already at home. So just be safe hitting end on this meeting. Have a good night and thank you.